Oh, hello there. Yes, well, good grief, it's stopped raining. Yes, reminds me that God sent us rainbows, promising that he would never send another flood. Yes, which is probably bad of him because, rainbows. Yeah, up above the streets and houses, rainbow climbing high. Yes. And those shows with pink hippos. It's no wonder there are so many gay people in the world, is it, eh? Filth they used to throw at, well, people younger than me. Dreadful. No wonder I'm immune. Anyway, moving on from such absolute nonsense, I mean I have, but loads of other people haven't, we come to the big concern of yesterday, which was, thank goodness, a reason why people on GB News and Talk TV and the Daily Telegraph and others can get to be victims. There is nothing finer than being a victim or a potential victim, whereby the government might suggest that, if you're a bit of a nasty bigot, that you are in fact a bit of a nasty bigot. So we did have this. Concerns over mass migration is terrorist ideology, says Prevent. Yeah, that's the government's Prevent strategy to you and me. Online guidance, oh no, the worst sort, someone's found a thing. Says cultural nationalism could be a reason for referring someone for de-radicalisation. Yes, could is doing a lot of lifting there. But of course, that therefore fed into the notion that, anybody that sort of says things like that will probably be arrested by the police almost any day now. So I'm imagining that Alison Pearson is probably quaking in her slippers and dressing gown. But the usual suspects, inevitably, were across about this. We had Liz Kershaw saying, "Are you a terrorist?" And it's worthwhile actually delving into just unpacking a little bit of this. So, according to them, with terrorist ideologies, some of them, not all of them, you can have a look at this stuff on the website if you fancy, or not. Just go with the frothing at the mouth thing. Extreme right wing. We define extreme right wing terrorism as an active or vocal support of ideologies that advocate discrimination or violence against minority groups. Worthwhile thinking about that one. Advocate discrimination against minority groups. Think about all that stuff that we're seeing in the, right-winger sphere at the moment. Anyway, the three most common subcategories of extreme right-wing terrorist ideologies and their narratives are, good use of colon there, cultural nationalism. Western culture is under threat from mass migration and lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups. Yes. Now, that is the stock in trade of basically GB News, isn't it? It's the Reform Party's, entire home program of ideas, isn't it? That's it. And that's the problem, of course, because if somebody is a bigot, the worst thing you can possibly do to them is point out that they're a bigot. So that can't be allowed. Anyway, white ethno-nationalism, mass migration from non-white world and demographic change poses an existential threat to the white race and Western culture. Yeah, it's that Western culture thing again, which is a phrase that you'll often see on, for example, GB News, isn't it? Yes, the idea that there's us, aren't we great? Look at us, Pythagoras et al. And there's them, boo hiss, algebra. Oh no, maybe not that, eh? Yeah, them, all bad. Yeah, that is, of course, I don't know, at least about 90% of what Reform say, and it's, when they're on GB News, it's about, it's about 100% of what they say. And white supremacism. The white race is biologically, culturally and spiritually superior to all other races. An alternative form of government ranging from fascist regimes to ethno-tribalism should replace Western parliamentary democracy, yes. And you do see a lot of that stuff online as well. And very often some of the people that do advocate for that are interviewed by the type of people that get interviewed on GB News. I'm looking at you, Steve Ellington, eh? Still, they're not extremists, you understand, and you mustn't say that they are. They'll get quite cross and then go into a sort of victimhood meltdown mode whereby their human rights, oh dear God, our human rights are being oppressed. How dare you suggest that we want to, suppress other people's human rights? Yes. Anyway, I was just sort of thinking about this in relation to some of the usual people that I do tend to have a go at. Matt Goodwin had a piece by Stephen Tucker where it was being suggested that the numbers he was coming out with the other day were bad. Yeah, how the left tried to massage Matt Goodwin's figures predicting white Brits' looming minority status. And it's worthwhile, again, just thinking about people like Matt Goodwin because they are very much do fall into that, cultural thing, don't they? I mean, he's not overtly wanting discrimination against other people, but by God, he wouldn't create that much of a fuss about it at the same time, would he? So here we go. Scary news, not to Britain's left-leaning media, whose only demonstrable concern about the whole report concerned the precise quality of its data and methodology. Well, yes, if you're going to present figures which prove something, then they have to be good. Now, let's just a little bit look at this particular thing, because this goes to the nub of why it was a rubbish report. Now, white British in 2025 is 73, non-white is 19.7, and other white is 7.3. Right? Okay. Now, you will notice those figures, but let's see what figures we end up with in 2070. We go down from the white British by about 30% to 46.2. White British basically goes up by, drumroll, 0.8, and non-white goes up by, 25 or whatever it might be. Now, that tells you instantaneously that there's something very odd going on with white other, which is what I said in my original video with this. And the reason why white other doesn't go up by much is because it uses as a baseline point the last census data, and that lots of those white other people didn't have children. So it's simply projected forwards on the basis that young people won't in future have children, which obviously is going to definitely be a thing, because we all know that no one gets older or changes unless, of course, it's white people who identify very specifically as white British rather than those people that identify as white other. Doesn't make any sense. No. Still, it's just me being picky about the methodology. Anyway, we do see lots of these kind of things whereby you have to buy in to their particular narrative, otherwise they will get quite cross about it, and no dissension or no hints that what they're saying is a bit iffy is allowed. There was the classic thing with Dawn French, who is as much of a Labour centrist, always has been, as you could possibly imagine, and because she dared to mention something broadly, mildly, about the state of Israel and its, potential genocide. Oh dear God, I am Hamas. Well, she's been getting the vitriol, hasn't she, from the same people that, are very, very concerned about free speech and everyone just having a say. It's perfectly okay. So we had this again on Talk. Dawn French has sparked a ferocious backlash after she appeared to mock the suffering of Israel's October 7th victims. Samantha Gill says she must be sacked by Marks and Spencer immediately. Yes, I think it's yet another reason. I think it's the first one I've spotted so far this year. No, it's the second one, sorry, whereby you must not go to Marks and Sparks. This is good, of course, yeah. People mustn't have their own opinions if they disagree with, the ethno-white, cultural nationalists, which is perfectly acceptable, isn't it? It's perfectly acceptable to, be in perfectly, in favour of, whatever the state of Israel does. Yes, we had the ongoing from Reform, the usual stuff about how can we have a go at Muslims? Oh, I know, let's have a go at Muslim things, right? Okay, Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice calls for a national debate on banning the burqa. It's a sensible thing to talk about, to discuss in a country that's founded in Christianity, yeah. Now, Richard Tice, as far as I know, isn't a Christian. And yet it becomes a convenient cultural thing when you want to have a go at other people, doesn't it? Yes. We haven't been a Christian country, realistically, for about 200 years. But suddenly that whole Western culture thing rears its ugly head, and yet they will therefore allow people to, hang on a second, discriminate, won't it? Yes. Still, I'm sure they're right. We need a debate. It's just their way of saying we need to be able to say more and more and more and more things. And once again, returning to the gorgeous and pouting Ash and Andre Walker. Oh dear God, I thought he'd been fired, but he's back again. Anyway, we had this from David Starkey a few days ago. David Starkey, CBE, that's important, warns against the rise of Sharia law. We are willfully importing a foreign system of law. Yeah, oh my God, it's Sharia law. How often have you heard about how dreadful it is with the enormous rise of Sharia law, and yet nobody can produce any evidence that there is any Sharia law whatsoever in real terms in the UK. There are Sharia courts, I know it uses the word court, but they are specifically only deal with things which are outside the remit of actual British law. But never mind that, eh? Never mind that. It's that cultural thing. We must defend Western culture, mustn't we? Yes, we must side with those people that are going to discriminate against... no, not that, obviously. Not that, obviously. It never goes as far as that, does it? We never get to actually have these people come out and say it. Yeah, they allow the people that are slightly one step aside from them. And that in many ways is the problem with people like Rupert Lowe, because he has actually crossed over that line. And at that point, that's where you get to be fairly iffy with it. And some of them are certainly going that way. I mean, great friend of the channel, inevitably James Esses, has completely now moved on from trans issues to just pride, generically, okay? So it's now going to be pride anything, which is just another way of being homophobic, isn't it? Or is that a cultural thing? I'm not really quite sure. Yeah, it's just becoming quite vitriolic, because these people, whenever they feel with things like some vague article which suggests that their views are a bit abhorrent, then they'll go into a meltdown and feel that they should therefore park their tanks even further along on the lawn, and then launch another series of attacks against the people they really don't like. Yeah, the ones they really don't like. And when it comes down to it, there isn't an issue necessarily with the burqa in this country, or Sharia law, or halal meat, or indeed, pride generically. They just don't want the people that are associated with that, and they want by God, they want the right to be able to say it more explicitly than they do now. And it's getting very, very borderline. And I'm wondering how long it is before, for example, Fraser Nelson, who is, since he's actually sort of not writing for the Telegraph, but we've moved on to the Times, is coming out with some reasonably sensible stuff. I don't agree with his politics, but at least he's not just a nasty bigot. So we had this from him. Reform's recent anti-Muslim tone deploys the sorts of nastiness Farage has always avoided. I'm not quite sure if Farage has realistically avoided that, though, has he? Anyway, perhaps this is why Ziad Youssef's quit, but either way it risks a slide into a direction that Farage might not be able to control. Yes, isn't it? It's that ethno-nationalism thing which we are very much entering into, whereby we can hold up our Tommy, as a cultural hero, because after all he's got some black friends, so it's okay. He can't be an extremist, can he? None of them are. None of them are ever extremists, and but by God, they don't half touch a nerve when you suggest that they are. They really do squirm, don't they? Anyway, do have a lovely white Western weekend if you can do, and if you can't, blame someone else and suggest that it's your human rights, even though that legislation needs to be repealed. Oh dear God, how are they going to go to court if they don't have human rights legislation? Oh, we might just laugh. No, of course not, because, hey, they're my rights too. Still, I must be wrong, even vocalising it. God, I'm just a ham ass, aren't I? Enjoy.